For joining us. I am Yori Folani. Our topic today, it's not a new one, it's a perennial one, and that's because it's insecurity. And nobody will say insecurity or aspects of insecurity is a new topic. We've talked about it, but we can't stop talking about it because it would appear not to be getting better in spite of all efforts to address it. Well, two experts, security experts, that will be, shall we say, looking at the topic yet again to see if there's anything different and if there is really any hope, because we can't be hopeless. The experts are Dr. Kabir Adamu, CEO, Beacon Consulting Limited. He joins us remotely. Thank you very much, Dr. Adamu, for making time for us this morning. And in studio,
my pleasure.
Indeed. And in studio here we have Dr. Tony Ofoyeton, DG, Director General, International Institute of Professional Security. Dr. Tony, thank you.
Good morning, Uncle Yori, and good morning, Nigerians.
Indeed, thank you very much, sir. Now, gentlemen, as I said, it's hardly a new subject, but because you guys are professionals in the sector, that is the security sector, let me ask Dr. Adamu, has anything really changed? Looking over something like the past 5 years, let's just take it 5 years. Has it gotten better? Is there reason to be hopeful that this would be dealt with in a timely fashion? Because if 5 years before now, we've been discussing this matter very, very seriously, everybody, the National Security Advisor, formal security outfits, private security outfits, everybody has been addressing the subject. And I don't know, let me first of all take your assessment, Dr. Adamu. Is the situation getting better or is it getting worse? Maybe let's start from there.
Okay, there are different ways to approach, that question. But I think the most credible and scientific way is to look at data and see where we are in terms of our progress or lack of it in various metrics. So I run a company, Beacon Security and Intelligence Limited, and we keep data of security occurrences. And we know that over the years, you mentioned 5 years, we have fluctuated between an annual fatality rate of 6,000 to 10,000, thereabout. The highest that we've recorded, at least since we started keeping the data, was in 2013, when the then president, and unfortunately Nigeria entered the annals of history by hosting the world's deadliest terror group, which is the Jamaat al-Ahl al-Sunnah lil-Dawat wal-Jihad. That year, 13,000 Nigerians were killed. That year and the subsequent years that followed saw the emergence of another deadly terror group, which is the bandits that are domiciled in northwest Nigeria. Now, the then administration succeeded in bringing down that fatality figure to around 6,000, 7,000 on a yearly basis. But by 2023, when that administration left office and handed over to the incumbent, the figure had climbed again to 10,000. Now, what we're seeing this year, from January to June, is a fatality rate of above 5,000, which tells us if we maintain what is currently happening, by the end of the year, we're also going to see around that 10,000. So it's really left to the audience to use that metric to say, but in my view, we're not making progress. We are moving from, it's a plateau where it's been up and down.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Adamu.
It's an increase. But I was going to make a point,
okay.
Which I think very
please.
important to the conversation. Now, the immediate past administration attempted to introduce Executive Order 13, and then which this new administration, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, institutionalized. And Executive Order 13 is about performance measurement in governance. So the president has institutionalized it, has given the responsibility to his special advisor on policy and coordination, and now we have a process for monitoring and evaluation, including the security sector. So that is what gives me hope that unlike what used to happen in the past, where the security sector was not accountable, under this administration, if this policy process of performance management would be implemented, then the security sector will be accountable. And if you allow me quickly to mention that the process of performance measurement has several components. One of them includes the submission of the ministries themselves. You remember last year, the ministry signed the performance code with the president. So all the ministers signed the performance bond with the president, including the security sector ministers. And that performance bond allowed the Central Delivery Coordination Unit, which is the central unit for this performance measurement, to develop key performance indicators. Now, we as citizens are also allowed to contribute to it. An app has been developed by the Presidential Advisor on Policy and Coordination, which every Nigerian can go to and share your views on whether you are seeing progress in that particular ministry or not. And then the last component is sector experts who have been engaged by the CDCU to submit their professional views on whether that ministry is making progress or not. So all of that was put together, and by April this year, the first quarter performance review was done, and I think the report has been submitted to the president. So hopefully the president would look at that and take some action for those ministries that are doing well. He would take action. For the ones that are not doing well, of course, he would also take action. So that's what gives me hope in direct response to your question. Okay. There is now a process for performance measurement, which is credible, using all of these three methods that I've mentioned. The onus is on the president to use that report. And of course, the onus is also the special advisor on policy and coordination, Hajia Hadiza Bala Usman, to make sure that the report he submits to the president is credible. The other part of our conversation is also the role of the National Assembly, the oversight function that the National Assembly plays. If that role is played, effectively, then yes, I have hope.
All right, there. Thank you very much, Dr. Adamu, for that sort of scientific answer to the question of, are we getting better, worse, or staying still in terms of engaging with this aberration on our society, especially in Nigeria's northwest. Dr. Foyeton, maybe what would be your take on this matter? Because it's nice to have this kind of clear-cut, how does one put it, professional, academic analysis of the situation, like but the life of the people is really what one is trying to get at. This surely must have all sorts of consequences for development, for the quality of life and development and all of that. So what's your take on this age-old problem?
Thank you, Nkuyori. And I think I understand the angle my brother is coming from. And like you said, at times in this climb, it sounds very academic, though very professional. But you see, my own take in this is not whether we are making progress, stagnant, or we are moving forward. Because if I have to answer that, it's neither here nor there. But my challenge basically is we are looking for a solution, or we are looking for solutions. Now, the security agencies that are the executors of policies as it relates to security, they formulate the policy, they execute security policies, subject to the approval of Mr. President. I think one of the things that all, be it the political class and the security, community, have not been able to tackle is the root cause or the root causes of this thing you call insurgency or terrorism in the country. Now, if we've been able to identify the root causes, to what extent have we been able to address those root causes? Now, if we're not addressing those root causes, it's as good as cutting the tree from the leaf or the branches and the life, removing, leaving the roots. You would see many a times that even their reaction is reactionary rather than being proactive. Now, if you are talking about the root causes, you look at what are the reasons that these people are perpetrating this type of act. If you are able to identify the reasons, then you remove the reasons. Once you remove the reasons, then you now discover that you have weakened the whole constituents of the terrorist organization by 80%.
But that's why people say this is much easier said than done.
No, it is not a rocket science. It's a product of political will,
Okay.
because yes, it's a product of, it's not a rocket science. Once the government is able to play high premium and high value on the lives of people, it would interest you that once that is established, the attitude and the demeanor will change eventually. You remember the story of an American that was abducted in Nigeria here, and the American government had to put in all its machinery and machinery. They don't care whether he is a plumber or he is a mechanic or he is a sweeper in America. As far as he's an American, the value of his life is equivalent to the value of the president of any other country apart from America. You look at that attitude. Now, if you look at what is happening, in the North, for example, which is the epicenter of terrorism in this country, what is the level of education? What do they, even some of them, do they even understand the meaning of terrorism? The terrorists and the like. If you look at what happened in Sokoto recently, now you see that we have the Ansarus, we have the Boko Haram. The Ansaru are extract, from the Boko Haram sect. The Ansaru strategy of terrorism is such that they take time to penetrate into the community. They even render community services over time. They even offer to protect the community and the like. And at the end of the day, end up doing what? Collecting taxes and the like from the community. The day the community realize that, okay, they are now being overburdened because they now have a tax master and they now want to revolt, then you will now see the violence. Are you there with me? Now, there are different strategies. That is the strategy of the Al-Qaeda and all those stuff like that. Penetrating. Unlike the Boko Haram that will come in violence and say, whether you're a Muslim, whether you're a non-Muslim, it's not their business. But the Ansari believes that, look, the way you treat Muslim is different from the way you treat non-Muslim. But the question is this. When you talk about different species of snakes, are they not, do they not have the venom to kill? The issue is not the species. The issue is whether they have the venom or not. Now, you see, these are areas that government should be able to be fair and true. Look at what is happening in Sokoto as we speak now. You see, Sokoto is supposed to be a holy state.
Yes.
If you permit me to use that word. Sokoto is supposed to be like the Mecca of Nigeria. It's supposed to be the headquarters of Islam in Nigeria, to the extent that no human being should see Sokoto and be thinking of violence. But look at what is happening, to the extent that the state has been desecrated. Because, those that are either the architects, the players, and the like, we are not placing our priority where we ought to place. We are not going all out to understand that, look, you don't nurture terrorism. It's like you don't use snake as what do you call it, your pet at home. It's just a matter of time. It will bite. Now, if you also look at what is happening now, look at some of the causation. You are talking of unemployment. You are talking of some other issues. The infiltration of foreigners in the northwest. Now, what do? They come there to annex your mineral resources. Some of these mineral resources. In short, recently, somebody approached me on rubies and the like, and I was shocked to discover that ruby is more expensive than gold. Shocked to discover that, and we have a lot of it in Zamfara. We have a lot of it in Kaduna. We have a lot of it in some other states in the north. And shockingly, some of these foreign countries and they come in there, they arm this group, allow them to go on illegal mining, bring it to them. At times, some of them are even killed once they get those resources, and they find their way out either through chartered aircraft or through illegal routes out of the country. And you are talking of the natural resource of the country. The truth is that if the government is not able to understand that this is a major causation of terrorism in the country, it will strive, because any country that have high deposit of mineral resources, they are bound to have such crisis. You go to Democratic Republic of Congo, that is said to be the richest country in the world and the poorest country in the world. That is the paradox. So if you look at Zamfara is just, sitting on a keg of gunpowder. It's just a matter of time before you know what is happening. Zamfara may become an epicenter of terrorism, because even though the government is trying all its possible best to ensure that, okay, illegal mining are stopped and all those stuff like that, but it goes beyond legislation. It goes beyond coming to press and all those stuff like that. You must be seen
even in that side. Because what, I'm sorry to say, what some of these countries do is they've been able to identify your minerals. In Nigeria has about 23 solid mineral resources at commercial quantity. America, as big as it is, has 24. Just one. And where America is, the population of America is almost, is of course bigger than that of Nigeria. So if Nigeria, for example, is able to harness its mineral resources in the proper way, we don't have business with poverty. Our arable land has been cultivated. Just 3% of our arable land, or 4%, is said to have been cultivated. Uncle Yori, you will see that when you travel anywhere in the country by road. Look at the uncultivated land you will see. There are more than the little land we know within our neighborhood in the cities. So the government should be intentional about removing the causation of terrorism. You talk of employment. You don't need a technology to create employment. If you are able to bring incentives and say, for example, anybody that is ready to go into farming, we are ready to give X and Z. We are ready to give him a house. We are ready to give him a car. We are ready to give him the equipment he will use. Once he's able to cultivate maybe 10,000 hectares of land and he stands with it, we are ready to give him all this. Libya, before Gaddafi died, you will see that every barrel that was extracted in Libya, an average Libya up to 6-month-old child has a portion of that one barrel. So, and you see that even when Libya went through war, their GDP, their foreign reserve never dropped by a cent. So this, and Nigeria, we have that resources. Yeah. But the question is whether we have that political will, and if we do have the political will, who are the people that are advising Mr. President as it is now? I think Mr. President should really look outside, should forget about his advisors, and look outside and think about private consultants, because his advisors are going to be telling him what he wants to hear, what they think he wants to hear. They are only going to be pacifying him because they want to keep their pot of soup, which is their appointment. Because as it is now, they are not doing Mr. President a very good service. Many of them are not working according to, the pace with which I see that Mr. President wanting to work. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, the whole thing will backfire on him. So if he is able to say, okay, whatever advice they give me the advice. Let me have the people's opinion about this thing. Listen to radio, listen to television, listen to what the people are saying. Forget about what your press people will say. Forget about whatever information they want to manage. Mr. President has been a street man. I'm sorry, in quotes. So it's not as if there's anything new on the street that he would not be able to have access to. If these are able to be done, he will be able to identify all the causes of this terrorism, remove it. For foreign infiltration, it's not going to be a difficult thing, because it takes, the participating scrutiny of an insider to be able to nexus that of a foreigner, to be able to succeed. A Chinese, an American, a German, a Briton will not go to Zamfara on his or her own to go and exploit your gold. He's going to use your people to exploit the gold, give them peanuts, collect the money. Some of them don't even know the value of what they are. Yeah. They don't even know. Some of them don't even know what they use them for. And at the end of the day, what happened? If there's going to be violence, they will harm your people against your people. It happened in Niger Delta, in the oil region. They will give the boys $300,000 and give them arms and ammunition or maybe $1 million. And these boys will escort vessel, 1 million barrel of vessel, 2 million barrel of vessel outside the country, because they have gotten peanuts and they have gotten LPG that they think they cannot afford. So at the end of the day, they will escort, your oil and all those stuff. In those days,
Thank you very much, Dr. Ofoyeton. Exactly. Dr. Adamu, having listened to Tony, it strikes me that I don't know what our capacity is to address the problem that we are talking about, the rampant banditry in Nigeria's northwest, by which I mean it would appear that the criminals know that they simply have superior power, because, look, the role of government is that this is the law, and government is going to uphold the law. But it would appear that these criminal elements know that government can't uphold nothing. If we insist on doing what we want to do, nothing will happen. Look, were the security forces not virtually overwhelmed during the last protest, especially in the north? And so this is concerning. I don't know what your take is on that. that the criminals seem to be able to operate at will, and the security forces do not seem to have the wherewithal with which to put a check on their actions. First of all, I don't know the extent to which you believe that statement.
Yes, it is a statement that, for all intents and purposes, is factual. And by that, the figures that I reeled out earlier is an indication of that. The numbers are high, and if the numbers continue growing high, then that's the best indicator that perhaps our security forces are overwhelmed. But I want to give a little bit of context to our listeners, so that what I'm going to say after that would make more meaning. The figures I gave, I broke them down per region and also per state. So if you allow me, maybe in 2 minutes, I'll be very fast. I will break down those statistics so that we see where the Northwest stands in this regard. Now, in the month of July, which is the most recent publication we did using our data analysis, the total figure for that month for fatalities is 853 persons that died within the month of July. Now, when we broke it down by state, the two states that had the highest fatalities were Niger State in North Central with 142, followed by Borno State with 128. Now, the third one is in the Northwest, which is 106, followed by Benue State, which is in North Central, then followed by another Northwestern state, which is Kaduna, which is at 49, and then Katsina, also Northwest, at 45. Now, for abduction, which is the one that keeps me up at night, we recorded 1,035 abductions in the month of July, which was a 121% increase from the month of June. Now, the top states that had the highest figures for abduction was Zamfara State with 266, followed by Katsina with 231. All two states are in the Northwest. Then the third state is in the Northeast, which is in Borno State. Now, quickly, when we did a regional depiction of the data, what we saw for abduction is 69.9% of the abductions in the month affected the Northwest region. I repeat, 69% affected the Northwest region, followed by the Northeast, and then the third was the Southeast. When you go to fatalities, 33.41% affected the North Central region, followed by the Northwest, which had 33.29%. So again, the Northwest was the highest for fatalities. Now, the most interesting figure is when you put the three northern regions together. In the case of abduction, the three northern regions have over 90% of the occurrences of abduction. And for fatalities, they had about 80%. So in simple terms, Uncle Yori, if the subnationals, and I want to emphasize this, it is not just the responsibility of the federal government. Those root causes that were identified by Tony, education as an example is in the concurrent list. Health is in the concurrent list. Power recently has become in the concurrent list. Unemployment or employment, as the case may be. Environment are all issues that are in the concurrent list. So there is no way the federal government can address the root causes of security. It is a responsibility that especially the subnationals would need to take. Geopolitical issues, development in Niger, developments in Sudan, developments in Libya are issues that require collaboration and cooperation between the federal and state government. So I was very excited when a few weeks ago, the expanded state council meeting had governors in attendance. I don't know what was discussed at that meeting, but I'm hoping that it is issues like this that were discussed, so that the governors also appreciate their role in addressing the root causes. I want to say with all sense of responsibility that if we spend the next 10 years deploying the military and the police and name them to these locations without addressing those root causes, it will be tantamount to fetching water with the basket,
Yeah.
we would not solve the problem. We have to address those root causes.
Well, I think at this stage, let me just please stay with us. We'll take a quick break.
Audits and challenges to economic development, as well as issues yearning for government intervention. Watch fresh episodes of Community Forum on Sundays by 9:30 p.m.
Okay, welcome back. Dr. Kabir Adamu, CEO Beacon Consulting Limited, is our guest this morning, as well as in studio here, Dr. Tony Ofoyeton, Director General, International Institute of Professional Security. Thank you, gentlemen, for being with us and helping us to look at this old subject, but giving us sort of the latest, especially Dr. Adamu, weighing in with the statistics with which to contextualize what we're talking about. And in studio, Tony saying that without prejudice to those excellent statistics that are provided, he's really afraid that will the knowledge of it do very much to address this situation, if I understood you properly, if we don't get bloody minded, in quotes, about the matter. Although, it's not exactly the way you expressed it, but you did say it's not rocket science, and there has to be a zero tolerance policy for this matter. But can we really go there? Because, as Dr. Adamu was saying, given the size of our military, the size of our police, there's nothing that those ones can do in the final analysis without the subnational, heads and heads of government weighing in.
I agree to some extent. In actual fact, it's high time we started calling state governors to account. But one of the reasons why calling state governors to account, basically, is because they've not actually been empowered in its totality the way it ought to be. The state governor cannot issue an order, for example, to the commissioner of police in a state without the commissioner of police getting clearance from the police headquarters before implementing such order. And that becomes a big impediment to security execution, especially in this time and season. So there was a time when this present government talked about state policing. And surprisingly, I don't know what happened along the line, whether it's been jettisoned, whether it's KIV'd, whether it's been abandoned.
I think it is KIV. I think they're looking at it.
But whatever we think, security as it is today is such that must be departmentalized to the grassroots. It must be departmentalized to the grassroots. Whatever strategy we want to use. There are many paramilitary security agencies that are already on ground, that are doing playing the role of state policing. The only difference is that they've not been armed. In Lagos State, you have many of them. LASMA is there. Lagos State Safety and Neighborhood Watch, or what's the name, is there. The Vigilante Group of Nigeria is there. The Corps of Commissioners, they are all there. Now, these are people and organizations that government can use. Don't forget that NSCDC, Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps, used to be a volunteer organization until the government of Obasanjo decided to bring them in and say, concentrate on protection of national critical infrastructure. And of course, then subsequently extended it to them regulating the activity of private security organizations in Nigeria. So, you see, it's not a matter of whether they have the right numerical strength or not. We have organizations and paramilitary organizations that can play, some complementary roles, either in intelligence gathering, either in information and all those stuff like that. They can even play the role of pace setters, the role of pointers. They know the forest, they know the mountains, they know the streams, they know their villages, all the traditional rulers and the like. To what extent is government able to co-opt these people to have a broader security architecture? It is only at that point in time that you can be talking of the type of solution you are looking at. The governors too.
One moment, please, because Mr. George has been in for a while. And thank you very much, Mr. George, for holding on. Please go ahead now.
Thank you. Good morning, Uncle Yori. And my greetings to Dr. Tony and Dr. Adamu.
Good morning, sir.
Uncle Yori, I came in at the point Dr. Adamu was reading out the statistics of security incidents and that occur within a specified period. Truth is that those figures, even though they are fluctuating, whether they are high or they are low, they are very, very embarrassing and intolerable as far as security of our people is concerned. We do not seem to have an effective solution to this problem. Because when you look at the trend, you will see that the fluctuation is within the same range. That means basically there is no change. In spite of the fact that the president has made changes in the personnel of the security agencies, the previous president did the same thing, but the result appears to be the same. Why is it so? To the best of, I'm not a security expert, the security experts are with you. To the best of my understanding, the Boko Haram insurgents are the ones that transformed to bandits, kidnappers. It's no longer restricted to the north. It's now all over the country. You go to the social media now, Uncle Yori, you see small boys who are bandits flaunting millions of naira they collected from their victims on the social media. They have gained confidence to that extent. It is because there hasn't been an effective way of tackling them. They have become so emboldened that they believe that they can do it and get away with it and nothing will happen to them. For how long is this going to be? For me, I think the security agencies and the security chiefs have taken insecurity in our country to be a business, without which they themselves cannot thrive. That is the bitter truth of this problem. Otherwise, I want to ask Tony, otherwise, why is it that when they kidnap military or policemen or kill military men or policemen, these same security agencies will go after them and get them? That tells me that if they want to get the bandits, if they want to exterminate these boys, they can do it. Why is that aspect of it thriving? And when it affects their own personnel, they will address it. I don't know whether if we say now that the president should bring in foreign people to come and help us out, our same security experts will say no, the consequences are great. But what do? I heard when Tony said the president should think out of the box and disregard his advisors. Well, if he does that, even if he brings in outsiders, will they not also interact or work with our security men? The problem is something else. I think we just have to be praying that solution should come from above. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. George, for calling in. I think it's Dr. Adamu's turn now. You see, when the Nigerian feels about a problem and agonizes about it, he often ends up with, you know what, I think we just have to pray. And no matter how professional he is, he's going to finish it with, you know, we just have to pray. Because what box can we think out of now is the big question. Because as the statistics copiously explained, we can't even determine that it is getting better or it is getting worse or it is staying in the same place. We just know that there is no safety in the land, especially in the Northwest, for some of the reasons that we've already spoken about. So what's the way forward? Because the society is not safe. And if it's not safe, then where is this investment that Mr. President's administration is looking for at this stage? well, what are the options? What can we do is the question that I imagine the administration should be seriously asking itself.
Yes, two things, Uncle Yori. We should be mindful, and I'm speaking directly to the political class, the consequence of allowing the current insecurity situation in Nigeria to stay is the fragility of the Nigerian state. If you look at the state fragility index, out of almost 200 countries in the world, we're at number 15, which means our fragile index is high. The higher the figure, the higher you are, the lesser your fragility. The lower you are, the higher your fragility. So we're at number 15. Every index that you can think of exists in Nigeria. And the responsibility lies squarely with our political class. And I'm very excited about the renewed hope agenda by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. As a security professional, I've looked at the imperatives listed out there. They're very good. The challenge, however, is in the implementation. And I've talked about Executive Order 13 and the fact that the president has institutionalized it. So that is the way to go. I'm hoping that the president will look into the processes. The report has been submitted to him. Those ministers that performed well, they deserve commendation. Those that didn't perform well, it is at his discretion to know what to do with them. But if I'm going to recommend, is to tell them thank you. We've given you the opportunity within a year. You've not been able to do well, and bring in new fresh bloods so that they can perform. And I can tell you, the security sector ministers didn't perform very well. Perhaps only one of them performed very well. All the others, I think about 4 of them, did not perform very well in the performance process. So again, the onus is to ensure that that is done. The second component is the National Assembly. The National Assembly has 3 major roles. Number 1 is budgeting. And we know that the National Assembly has done very well. There is no sector in the 2024 budget that has the highest provision beyond security. Even education and health did not get the provision that security got in that budget. Now, that's even at the federal level. By the time you add provisions at the subnational level, you find out that security is getting a lot of money. But as Nigerians, we're not seeing the result of that money. So the National Assembly needs to now do the 2 other things that it is mandated to do, which is oversight. And the National Assembly can only do oversight in the security sector if it understands the security sector. That means, for instance, it needs to engage experts to support those committees on security so that they can also develop key performance indicators. When a budgetary submission is made by a ministry, let's say to buy a Super Tucano, the National Assembly should be able to ask that ministry or agency of government, what are you going to use that Super Tucano for? Give us a timeline for the achievement of that purpose. So if it's to address banditry, how long do you think that Super Tucano will assist you in addressing banditry? So that during subsequent engagement, both in terms of oversight and then the visits that they invite the leadership of that organization, they can ask them clear questions, measurable questions. So again, the National Assembly needs to embrace M&E and key performance indicators in the same manner that the president has done in adopting Executive Order 13. The last one is in form of legislation, oversight, and then representation by the ministry. That means the aspect of coordination, cooperation, and collaboration that we've been talking about for ages. There are 29 ministries and departments and agencies of security at the moment. We need to see them working together, and I think the National Assembly can play a key role in ensuring that is done, using both the budgetary and then the oversight function that it does.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Adamu. Dr. Foyeta, I wanted to be encouraged, but I was a bit concerned when Dr. Adamu said the National Assembly is doing well. Some of us will say, how well? Because it's a measure of what they are doing what is it impacting this problem that we have? We are not seeing it as an emergency. I think it was in Brazil, just to cite an example, in Brazil, where the rate of criminality got to a stage where the government said, now, no more. Brought on a special force, a special police intervention force, and if anybody made whim, they adjusted the democratic something a bit, say, look, this democracy is going to, slow us down a bit. What I'm saying, so before we knew where we were, the streets were free of all of these terrorists. I don't know, but at least they tried. They are not. They were addressing it like that. I don't know. Is it naive to think of it in those terms? At least the government of Brazil, when they had this problem with kidnapping and touts and all of that, there was an action that we are in an emergency. We're not saying this is forever, but we're in an emergency now. Let anybody make him there. He's locked up.
Uncle Yori, if you remember in one of the interviews I granted here, I suggested that the president and the government should look at the possibility of a special rural intervention force.
Yes.
And I said that one of the things we look at is, it's an intervention program. It's not a standing army, it's not a standing force, but it will approach a counter-terrorism in kinetic and non-kinetic way, but predominantly the kinetic approach. I also said that the intervention will bring in traditional rulers, will bring in local vigilante, local hunters and the like, and they will have their base in each of those villages, and their exclusive jurisdiction will be in the villages, not in rural area. Leave the conventional police and the conventional security agencies to begin to police the, so we'll have it simultaneous operation in the 6 geopolitical zones. You have 6 intervention groups simultaneously. And what they first do is what we call, geocombing, to the extent that each region, each forest are combed. Now go to the nook and cranny of those forests. You are going to support them technologically because they will need drone. You are going to support them with all the arms and ammunition they need. But more importantly is the fact that the traditional rulers would have to be involved, because I said they know their mountains, they know their forests, they know their gods. If you look at what happened in Jos, when the army formation came out to say that not that we don't know where they are, but the terrain is difficult for us to approach. If fellow human beings can get there in the name of bandits or terrorists, why won't you as a military be able to get there? That's your training and all those stuff. But it will be easier if they are able to have locals that understand the shortcuts and how to get to those mountains. The locals can help them in different areas. But they will have to also do what? Formally, just like you have the civilian JTF and the like.
So what's the problem in executing such a scheme?
No, you see, such a scheme is executable to the extent that you don't have politicians coming to hijack it.
Okay.
And those people that you call sleeper cell.
Yeah.
Now, what I mean by sleeper cell is this. I've been privileged to suggest this even in the some of the government parastatal hope and life and all those stuff like that. And you will see somebody coming to tell you that, no, the non-kinetic approach will not work, this and that and all those stuff like that, and that we should dialogue. But I ask a simple question always. If you have to be on a dialogue table, who is going to be the senior partner? It has to be somebody that have been able to establish his or her supremacy. If not so, if both of you are equal and you are sitting on the dialogue table, who is going to, lead the negotiation? So at the end of the day, we keep going front and back. Why? Because unfortunately and painfully, we have a lot of sleeper cells that are sympathetic to the cause of terrorists, even in government. So anytime you want to take such decision that they think will be very devastating to that group, they come all out with all their scenery, and they even come out with constructive argument that if you don't read in between the lines, you would know that these people are actually defending, surreptitiously defending the cause of the terrorists at the end of the day.
Dr. Tony, thank you. Dr. Adamu, what do you think of this particular aspect, which a lot of people have been telling us, that beyond the statistics, beyond the broad daylight of a meeting room, sitting around the negotiating table, there are these aspects where there are enemies within who indeed are actually helping the enemy even while pretending to be on our side. Briefly, please.
Okay, I don't believe in conspiracy theories. I know that recently, I think just over the weekend, the WTO, I think Director General, Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, did issue a public statement where she advised politicians to stop politicizing insecurity. So I rather believe more that is the situation where some aggressive politicians are actually politicizing insecurity than this conspiracy theory of insiders who are sabotaging. We have a sitting chief of defense staff who has come out publicly and in fact is running a policy where he believes that only 20% of our operations should be kinetic, 80% should be non-kinetic. So it's very difficult really to now come and say that there is sabotage when the very leadership of the operational sector within the Nigerian Armed Forces is running such an operation and has come out publicly to state it. Even the Minister of Interior, the Office of the National Security Advisor, named them, have all indicated this preference for non-kinetic over kinetic.
Although, sorry, sir. Although one doesn't know the details, as often happens in those kind of things, one of the Director Generals under the formation, under the National Security Advisor was changed, and there was speculation that that particular agency might have been interfering with some of the workings or intentions of the National Security Advisor. So that was the kind of thing I'm talking about. But as I said, one has to be careful because the security people don't tell you all as an outsider.
In that particular instance, I think there is more to it than perhaps you and I know, just like you hinted. But what I know, for example, is that the president did something that is quite untraditional. He left those individuals for more than a year, in fact, for about 15 months in their offices, which in former times, they are usually the first few to be changed by whoever it is that becomes president. So if that is anything, perhaps it's an indication that the president was happy with their services. And that is why I say I don't believe in
I hear you. Unfortunately, Dr. Adamu, we've completely run out of time. And this is one of those subjects where, we really, you understand it. Thank you very much, Dr. Adamu, CEO Beacon Consulting Limited. Dr. Tony Ofoyeton, all that's left is for me to just thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, DG International Institute of Professional Security. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming on and airing this subject matters for us. Okay, we're going to have to leave it here because, but join us tomorrow for a fresh edition